Outer Orange.
Привет. All right. I feel like I say this every time because I want it to be clear. I don't normally do content like this because I'm not really big into like the news content, but we got the kind of news content where I feel like it's actually worth talking about. So we're gonna go ahead and get into it. A new friends unit. I'm not gonna lie, this card's pretty whatever. When it boosts, you can give something 5k. You have to choose one of your other friends units. It does have the friends units effect, which is kind of cool, but honestly, I don't know how useful this is, as I feel like the cards are already being run up pretty good, but hey, you can still run it. I think the 5k does matter. You can put it on the stuff that matters. Maybe over time we'll give it more support, maybe something that restands, something to kind of give it a little bit more pressure. You can also go to your Vanguard, which isn't too bad, but overall it's kind of okay. Now this card is actually pretty bad. I read this card, but before I read the name of it, and I was like, oh, this card's really good. Is it a monster? And then I read this part. I was like, it's not even a monster. But that's pretty much when it's placed on rear, you can counterblast, so get top 5, choose a monster card from among them, reveal it, add to hand, shuffle your deck, and it gets 5k power. All really good stuff. Now the problem is that it itself is not a monster, and if you run it, you actually increase the chances of you bricking, kind of like backtracking on the same thing you're trying to do. Like, you're trying to search for monsters with this card, but this card can also whiff you, and on top of that, you can have a higher chance of whiffing with the orders if you run this at max 4. So honestly, this card's kind of rough for Archetype. In case you're wondering what I'm talking about, I am talking about Archetype because this is meant for Archetype, but honestly, it's a pretty rough card. But anyway, that's yesterday's reveals. Today's reveals, which I'm recording super late, so by the time you see this, it's gonna be Wednesday. But so we got the new common cards for Festival Collection. Pretty much all the vanilla triggers are getting reprinted. These are actually really pretty. Let's go ahead. I'm gonna look at them like a little bit close up here. So we're getting the trial cards reprinted, which I guess is kind of whatever. But we're also getting all the triggers, all the vanilla triggers reprinted, which is actually really funny because if you guys don't know, some of the vanilla triggers are actually getting really expensive. Like if you look at the Brave ones right now, unless they went down, they're pretty up there. Overall, this is really cool, and also it's chaos support. So these have to be different names. So Chaos is getting more cards that he can use because that's always good. And along with the Highlander Bermuda card, she can also use these as well because different card names. So fun stuff. And then we got a couple of reveals. We got this mermaid here. This card is actually pretty good in my opinion. So this is during your turn, if you have 2 or more face down cards in your order zone, she gets 10k power, which by the way is a really good number. And the other effect says if you pursue roll this turn, you can pay this with the soul blast cost. And it says when it's placed on rear, you can put a card from hand to soul, search your deck for up to 1 song card, reveal it, and add to hand. So 2 things about this card that's really good. One, the soul is pretty important actually, so putting a card from hand to soul actually isn't that bad. But searching your deck for a song is also incredibly good. So depending on the situation, since you can choose, it's actually really nice. And the reason why the soul matters is because the shield girl, the horse looking chick, she soul blasts. So you can kind of save yourself on soul without actually having to do too much. And honestly, you can also soul blast if you want to do it that way. But the fact that you can just get the song card out is really nice. Lone Earl herself actually has a pretty good effect. So her skill says she has the dress up effect. Her effect says when this unit is placed on Vanguard Circle, you can look at top 5 cards of your deck, choose up to 1 grade 3 or less card from among them and call it a rearguard circle, which by the way is huge because this deck definitely struggles with rearguards. If you get board wiped, it's very bad for you. And then the other effect says Vanguard auto ability, when this unit attacks a Vanguard, choose up to 1 face up song in your order zone, sing it. If your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, so soul blast 1 grade 3 card with Lone Earl's card name, so you can again synergize with the grade 2 up here. In battle, this unit gets an extra drive, so it's a triple drive, and your opponent can't call Sentinels to guard circle from hand. Also pretty good because you can't call Sentinels. That's really good. The center restriction is good. The triple drive is really nice. The fact that you can just literally just ride this on top of the old one and kind of get all the effects is pretty cool. The only thing you lose out, I think, is on Persona here. I guess you could run this new ride deck and kind of just do nothing for a turn, or you can run like the regular one and then run 4 of these. I don't know. We did get some new stuff that kind of helps with this engine, so we're gonna talk about it here in a little bit. So the new over trigger. So this is pretty much the way the regular over trigger works, but with an added effect. So pretty much normal over trigger, get 100 million on offense, defense, damage it. Yeah, you put 100 million somewhere, draw a card. Now, the additional effect here is that you choose one of your standing rear guards and it gets auto once per turn. At the end of the battle, let this unit attack, stand this unit, and until the end of the turn. If you do not choose draw a card, choose up to 1 of your unit cards from hand and call it. Honestly, strangely enough, this OT is actually useful in every situation. Is the best way to put it. If you whiff early, you get to just call a card for free. If you don't whiff and you stand something, cool, you can stand something. It's actually very interesting, the fact that you just call a card and you get to draw 2, so you don't have to actually call anything. It says choose up to, so you essentially can just draw 2 and just call it a day. Now, if you don't know, sometimes you just check this early enough and it kind of just does nothing, so essentially it's a draw 2 for doing nothing. And then if you do actually hit something like later on in the game, this card gets insanely strong. So it's kind of like I actually think this card is very good. I think this is like a solid 9 out of 10. I could be wrong, but to me it's a 9 out of 10. There's actually a lot of discussions about this card right now. People saying it's really good, some saying it's really bad, some saying it's kind of middle, some saying like why would you replace this with some of the other nation OTs, all that kind of stuff. So from not testing perspective, I can't give you like right off the bat like how great this card is, but to me so far there's no downsides to this card, as does the card stand alone? I'm not talking about what nation you have to put it in to take out other over triggers out for it, but as a standalone card, this is a really good card. Now, if you were to start comparing it with nation over triggers, I do think this card starts getting weaker, and that's kind of where the weaknesses start showing of the card, because it's like, why would you run this if you can run the Brand Gate OT, for example? Because honestly, the Brand Gate OT is very powerful. However, in some situations, this card's actually better. As crazy as it sounds, that is the thing. So even with the Brand Gate OT, that actually shows the power of how good this card is, that there's actually certain situations where you'd actually be rather running this. I will say I think Keter and Dark States really want this card, because I'm not going to lie, the Keter OT kind of sucks. No offense. It's kind of bad. It's actually the main reason I don't like touching Keter is because I would rather play a nation with a way better overtrigger. Stoicheia and Brand Gate are just, the overtrigger is just really good. So that was the one thing. The other thing is deck out, obviously. But now with this card in Keter, I would rather run this over in almost any situation. I think even in Bastion deck, I think I'd rather run this, because Bastion multi-attacks, and then you can just choose a rear guard and restand it again. Alden suddenly gets even more powerful. Why the heck not? You know, why do the drive checks matter? I feel like the drive checks don't even really matter. It's kind of like a win harder button if you hit triggers, but honestly, why not just have the extra attack? But that's just me. I don't know Dark States as much, but I could definitely see a world where you'd rather restand a rear guard over have the Vanguard pressure. Though I will say early on that crit really matters, but late game that crit really doesn't matter that much, and I just think the extra attack is better. And again, drawing 2 cards is just really nice. If you just don't do much, just draw 2 cards. And in decks like Barrow Magnus and a couple other ones where your hand kind of really depletes really fast, I feel like the draw is actually really massive. It can be very important. It can actually turn the game around for you if you happen to check it early on and it's not doing much. I think the draw in some situations is actually stronger than the crit. As crazy as it sounds, unbricking is still unbricking, and you can unbrick and win the game even if you hit the crit early on with the Dark States OT. It's like, yeah, but if you're bricking, you're not really doing too much anyway. You have pressure, but your opponent can guard it, you know. But late game into like the restanding stuff, I think this deck just I think the OT gets pretty insane. But on the other hand, Dark States just soul charges it half the time anyway, so what am I gonna know? And then going into like other nations, like if we're gonna start bringing up Stoicheia, I think it varies. I think the Stoicheia OT is just really good as an overall overtrigger. Defensively, offensively, whatever the case is, it's just a good OT, and it's really hard to want to replace this with that. But there are definitely decks where you might want to prioritize it more. Like, yeah, you get the 10k and the crit and all that stuff, but in like a deck like Zorga, where you already kind of naturally get a lot of pressure, this OT stands out to me more than the Stoicheia OT. But then you have like Magnolia, where it's like multi-attacking already. Maybe the other OT is better because your front row gets the power, you get the crit, you can put it on something. Now, I'm not saying that you don't want to run it in Magnolia. I'm just saying in Magnolia, I feel like utilizes it less than say like Zorga. So I think Zorga uses it better. So the funny thing about Stoicheia is that it's so toolboxy and so all over the place in every aspect that's actually hard to dictate precisely which OT is better, especially since the regular OT is already really good. So that's kind of just something to think about. Lyrical, I think, would love this card. I'm not gonna lie, I'm one of the few people, I don't like the Lyrical OT. I've never actually liked the Lyrical OT. I've always thought it was kind of boring. Like, one, I thought it was boring, and 2, it's just like this high roll-y kind of whatever mess sometimes, and I'd actually rather have this. I could be wrong, but I do think most decks actually utilize it pretty well. You know, you can restand your front row rear guards. A lot of Lyrical's decks multi-attack in a pretty nice way. Gonna do a little bit more. I think it amplifies stuff better. It is only for the turn though, so I don't know. It's hard because the Lyrical OT is for the rest of the game. But I don't know, it's a hard call. I actually like this better, but that's just me. I also, again, I just like the draw in case you can't call anything, in case you can't choose anything. I just think drawing 2 cards is just really nice. But like I said, maybe I'm overhyping it. Maybe I'm not. Now, Brand Gate is a really interesting one because the Brand Gate OT is actually insane. That OT is so ridiculously powerful that it's really hard to justify wanting to run this over Brand Gate OT. There, of course, is the grand old thing of Gravidia can restand 2 rear guards with the 100 million on both sides because it double triggers and all that stuff. It's another lottery machine, but instead of having the triple crit pressure, which you can still have if you hit another crit or whatever, but you have 5 attacks now in Gravidia, essentially, if you hit the OT, which is also going to be interesting to see. We're going to see, like I said, I think testing is going to need to be involved to kind of know for sure. But, you know, with that in mind, you can outplay Gravidia with the chance of checking the OT and restanding both your rear guards. I still think Gravidia at the end of the day is like somewhat of a lottery machine in some ways. I feel like if you're not checking triggers, you're not doing as much, but you are drawing a lot of cards, and maybe with more support, the Gravidia might come back. Maybe with this OT, Gravidia might come back. A hard call, but it's very possible. Ava is kind of in this weird slot of you have the crit pressure. Do you want to restand one of your ops crits too? Because yes, you're restanding with 2 crit on it over having the 4 crit on both sides, all that kind of fun stuff. It's kind of a hard call because I will say, though Ava is very strong, The rear guards are usually between 23 and 33, so or 38 or 28, depending on how you're doing stuff, depending on your boost situation. But let's talk about no boost, no extra stuff. 23, 23, or 33, 33 under persona, right? So, or if you're playing, if you have the grade 2 upgrades, it's less, right? So the issue that I think Ava has, at least with the over trigger difference, is that that over trigger doubles the power on top of doubling the crit, which is actually huge because now you're swinging for 66 and with 4 damage versus 33. So if you were to restand a rear guard, one of them will get the 100 million, right, and all that cool stuff, but the other one is still like a baby number. And I'm just not too sure. I don't know if it's worth getting the restand off or not, or if the pressure is kind of where it's at, because their opponent kind of needs to drop perfect guards for it. Kind of a hard call. A couple of others kind of fall into the same spectrum, I feel like, but I think Orphis would really like this card, because Orphis restands for huge numbers already. Like, Orphis as a deck already has massive numbers, so you don't really need the extra doubling power. But restanding rear guards on top of already multi-attacking actually sounds like really awesome. So personally, I actually think Orphis would love this over trigger. Orphis just ramps up so fast. Because it ramps up so fast, having a 6 attack I think is really important. Restanding your Shadow Army token for 100 mil just sounds really great. We go on about this over trigger for probably a while. I've already been going on about it for 13 minutes. Well, not 13, it's probably been about 8, but I talked a lot about it. I'm gonna kind of end it there, at least about the over trigger. There's definitely a lot of room for this, and actually I really like this one because it doesn't feel super overpowered, but it is a nice mind game addition, because now you're really gonna start questioning which OT is your opponent running, because you just won't know. And the last one is you get the Regalia's piece, and a lot of people have been like going ham about this card, and some brought up how like it makes sense why Qtara got banned, you know, because this card exists, right? So you pair search your deck for a total up to 2 cards, can be a grade 3 or 4. Different card names, reveal them. Call all revealed cards to guard circle. I mean, to rear guard circle, put all revealed grade 4s to hand. If you search your deck, shuffle your deck. So essentially, you can just unbrick yourself, whether it's an overdress or in premium, by the way, because both sides have grade 3s and 4s. So long story short, you pretty much unbrick yourself. If your 3s, they're call. If it's 4s, they go to hand. So essentially, you can just fix yourself. Fix whatever issue you're having. If you're running grade 4 decks, you have a higher chance of pretty much finding everything you need. And then if you have grade 3s or a grade 3 focused deck, you can utilize that. So Bastion's a good example off the top of my head. There's a couple others like the Lyrical deck that they have like a grade 3 engine too. There's one deck that has a grade 3 engine. It's the Leafia deck, so they could use it. And I'm sure there's a couple other decks out there that have like really good grade 3s. Oh, one deck could possibly Inlet really is utilized really well with this, right? I will say it's a one of. Keep in mind the Regalia's pieces are one ofs. So because they're one ofs, you know, you have to draw into it. So good luck with that. It could be a brick in your deck at some point. Like say you draw into it too late. It's not really doing too much. Now I will say I don't remember precisely, but I think you can run this in Zorga as well. I don't remember the whole ruling with the Regalia's pieces, but I'm pretty sure you can run it in Zorga as well. You guys can tell me down in the comments below like what the whole ruling is. I always forget. But long story short, you can throw it in there if you want. We'll figure that out if it's possible. It definitely can be utilized in premium in so many ways. In case you're wondering or need a little bit of spec, just keep in mind it can search Shield Guardians. So the fact that this can search Shield Guardians is pretty massive. And also grade 3 searchers can search this card out as well. So that's just the small bits and pieces of what you can do with this card. It's just a little fun fact. So definitely gonna be an interesting card. Definitely gonna be seeing a lot of this. I'm sure this card is gonna go up. I definitely think this is better than the Chalice, by the way. I was never really a fan of the Chalice to begin with. I like this card like 10 times more. So if you guys enjoy that, I'm gonna give you my little 2 cents. There's probably way more than what I just said, like probably like tons more. This is just like day 1 because there's just both the last 2 cards that got revealed are both insanely good. The Lone World stuff is good too, but honestly the peak is definitely the Regalia's and the Elemental OT. Anyway, I'm done talking. Subscribe, all that fun stuff to see more content from me. Shop if you need anything. OuterOrange, all that kind of fun stuff. On that, guys, peace out. That's Vidania. I'll see you guys in a future video. Bye.